So another thing that is happening is the consumer, this protection bureau. We're going to get into this crazy stuff going on here as well. This is another thing that Trump and Elon Musk are wanting to suspend, at least for now. And I'm going to explain to you how this could impact you and you may not realize it. And also the direction we should really be pushing for, right? This is Elizabeth Warren's thing. Like, this is her baby, right? And I still call Warren a snake because she did Bernie dirty, right? But Bernie should have called her that. Bernie should have called out Elizabeth Warren for what she did. But this is her baby. And I want to bring this up here. The Consumer Federal Protection Bureau handles cases where big banks scam customers with hidden fees, ensures medical debt doesn't impact credit scores. That's the big one. Protects against gouging from collection agencies. Billionaires are not for the people. And Zeneb is responding to this tweet here from Elon Musk, where he says CFPB RIP. Now, this is one of another organization that they feel we don't need to put money into that, right? Like, they're trying to gut parts of the federal government, at least some of that spending. And this is another one of the organizations that they want to do away with. But the point that Zeneb made here about medical debt. Now, this is something that crosses political lines, right? I know people that are Democrats that had medical debt, Republicans that had medical debt, independents, etc. You know, medical debt doesn't know a political party, right? They just know, okay, you may not have enough health insurance, so this is just you have this debt that you have to deal with. The CFPB protected those individuals from having that medical debt impact their credit score. So we're talking about people that may have emergency room medical bills, medical debt, maybe something happened and you didn't know, and this is not to say that you don't work, but even if you do work, you can have inadequate health insurance, or maybe the insurance company just decided that they're just not going to pay. It happens. I've been through it. Some of you have been through it. One of the terrible things about it is having it impact your credit, because then it stays on your credit for 7 years, right? And emergencies happen, like medical emergencies happen. You can't control what health insurance you have for most of us. It's what your employer offers. So removing this, that would change. So if you have any type of, think about this, I want you guys to go through some of your, go through some of your bank statements, whatever you need to do. Go take a look at your budget, because it could happen to you. And if it did happen to you, say it happened to you recently, if they remove this, that could change everything. That means that your medical debt could now be a part of your credit score. So keep that in mind. The other part here is, again, preventing big banks from scamming customers with hidden fees. But I'm going to tell you another solution to the big banks issue here. Now, we do dive into this a little bit more. This is an interview with the former director of Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Sorry. I think Zeneb said federal. Shout out to Case Study QB here for this clip. I want you guys to hear just a little bit more about this, about what this does.
Turmoil today for America's chief financial watchdog. The acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Russell Vogt, has told workers to, quote, stand down from performing any work task. Big picture, there's currently no federal regulators safeguarding Americans' money from unfair banking practices. And right now, it's unclear when the agency's work will resume and if it will resume. Officials said Sunday that the headquarters here in Washington are closed this week. Joining us now is the former director of the CFPB, Rohit Chopra. He was removed from his post by President Trump earlier this month. Rohit, thank you so much for being with us. As you watch what the Trump administration is doing here, why do you think they're doing it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, we need to protect people from some of the biggest powerful corporations in America. And over the past few years, we took action so they would forfeit billions of dollars from people that they cheated. Companies like Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, and more. And the truth is, people are really worried about high credit card interest rates, how they're going to pay their mortgage. We don't want to see their pocket picked. And by telling people the investigations are over, no more oversight, it just feels like a free pass to some of these big corporations to do whatever they please.
There are partisan differences historically, and CFPB is pretty new, but there are differences of what CFPB's role should be, opinions on the agency. Why is this different than just that?
Well, you know, I would say that there isn't so much partisan difference when you look at the actual work, medical bills, junk fees, protecting our personal data. It really enjoys broad support. The only place it's controversial is in Washington, and especially with the lobbyists representing Wall Street and these big companies. So, you know, here's what's different. This is in some ways a defund the police movement that they're pushing when it comes to big corporations. The CFPB is one of the only agencies that is overseeing these very large financial institutions, and increasingly, big tech giants are wanting to control the flow of money and payments, and they too have been potentially wanting to interfere with the agency's operations as well.
Okay, so the big problem here that you see, again, they keep saying these big financial institutions, we'll just call them the big banks, right? What is the real story? The real story is that these predatory banks are out of control. That's the real story. That's what this really boils down to. And this is not something new. These big banks have been a problem for quite some time. Raise your hand if you remember the '08 housing crisis. If you remember how these banks, how they scammed and preyed on elderly people and took their homes from them. This was under the Obama administration, and Obama chose to bail out Wall Street instead of all these people who lost their homes. So the big banks, yes, they are a big problem. But the other problem is, again, it is hard for the Democratic Party to fully push back on it because they accept donations from those big banks. They're in bed with Wells Fargo. Kamala Harris was on the debate stage bragging about getting the support from Goldman Sachs. They're in bed with these people. So if you weren't in bed with the big banks, if you weren't in bed with the billionaires, I say your pushback against Trump and Elon about billionaire money and tech bros and tech giants, it would hold more. It would be more firm. It would resonate with more people. And you could say, we're the party that does not take big money. But you can't say that because you take it too. Hakeem Jeffries was just meeting with Silicon Valley tech giants. So this gentleman is on here talking about, I got fired by Trump and these tech giants are taking over. But the Democrats are meeting with those tech giants too. Ultimately, these big banks, they own our politicians, but there is a way that you can put a ripple in this big bank disaster.
So as an example, let's talk about Elon Musk. He tweeted, RIP CFPB, complete with a tombstone emoji, before the Doge team took control of the CFPBX account, deleted it before Russell Vought even took over at the Bureau. What are his conflicts specifically here? How could he personally profit from this?
Well, a lot of people are talking about how some of these big tech CEOs and others, if they have the ability to spy and snoop on other competitors' trade secrets, to know new products that are coming out, if they're looking to gather more and more data on us, that could really pose a big conflict. A lot of these tech companies, Facebook wanted to create its own currency. Google actually sued the CFPB to stop us from looking at their Google Pay business. So there clearly is a lot at stake here, and these big tech companies seem to not want the CFPB to be looking under the hood.
As you see.
So do you see, I want you guys to understand how they're trying to play us, right? They're trying to play us. So what they're saying is that we do need the CFPB to keep these big banks in check. Wrong message. The message should be, we don't need the big banks. Get rid of the big banks. Get rid of the Wells Fargo, the JP Morgans. We don't need the big banks. That's what needs to change. Because even with these organizations like the CFPB, they're not stopping the big banks from still being able to have some type of predatory behavior, right? The big banks are still controlling things. Why do you guys think some of the smaller banks fail? If you look at the history of JP Morgan, the JP Morgan, you'll find out that the reason why that bank became so big is because he bought up all those smaller banks. When those smaller banks went under, he was just like, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it. And that's how JP Morgan was able to grow. I don't see them any different than I see billionaires. I don't. The big banks are a problem. The fact that you need to even have an organization in place so that you can keep them in check, that tells you they're predatory. That tells you they're not doing the right thing. We need to talk more and more about this. Now I want to go on to another part here because I want to show you something else. So, of course, as I said, this is Elizabeth Warren's big thing, right? This is her baby, her crown jewel. So, of course, when this news broke, Elizabeth Warren decided to hold a rally. Like I said, she's very active during the time when Republicans are in office. You know, where was this same rally when she was confronted at a restaurant and people were asking her not to support the genocide? This is how you know this is the game. When Republicans are in office, all of a sudden Democrats really want to, we got to fight. We got to do this, knowing they can't do anything because they don't have majority in the House or in the Senate. So I'm very familiar with Elizabeth Warren, very familiar. For those who are new, I'm here in the Boston area in Massachusetts. Elizabeth Warren is here. Yes, she is my senator, and I'm very familiar with the game that she plays as well. So now she's out here chanting, no, 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 hands off our CFPB, right? Watch this.
I am so glad to be here with you today. My name is Elizabeth Warren, and I am here with you to fight for our Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The CFPB is the cop on the beat. And that cop is the one that caught the crooks and so far has made them give back $21 billion.
Yeah, true. But give back the $21 billion. But my question is, why were they allowed to take it? Why were they able to take it in the first place? Corruption at its core. Let's continue with her.
That cop is the one that put that $21 billion right back into the hands of the American people who got cheated. That cop is the one who has worked day by day to get your money back when some slime ball decided they could cheat you and there wouldn't be anything you can do about it. Now, the CFPB is the little agency that has fought for us, and we are here today to fight for the CFPB. Let's give a huge cheer for the CFPB. Donald Trump ran his campaign on lowering costs for working families. Yeah, now he and his co-president, Elon Musk, have tried to shut down the agency that has delivered $21 billion to hardworking families, $21 billion to people who got cheated, and Trump and Musk want to just take that agency away. Donald Trump and Elon Musk have told the financial cops at the CFPB to stand down. Now think about this. I want you to think about this for a minute. No matter how big the scam, no matter how bold the trap, they have said, just stand by and let the Wall Street boys take your money.
You guys said that too, but in a different way. And I want to interrupt here for just a second, because here's the thing. Donald Trump said exactly what he was going to do when he was running, which is why the Democratic Party should have been 10 times better. Now, we can point fingers and come up with all these excuses, but the reality is the Democratic Party did not. Kamala Harris, for one, was a part of the current administration. So that was going to be one strike against her already. And when you don't do for the working class people, again, like I said, people swung all the way in the other direction, and a lot of people stayed home. So keep that in mind as well. The Wall Street corruption, the big banks, both parties allowed this to happen. And while you do have the CFPB, which is supposed to come in and, again, like I said, keep those big banks in check, the reality is it doesn't solve the problem. Someone mentioned it already in the chat, and this was a good point to point out. Thank you, Maria. CFPB fights the symptoms, not the problem. Democrats are really good at this. They're really good at fighting the symptom, but they don't really find a cure. They don't want to cure the, like, it's like all these years, they're telling you, scientists and doctors, every year you hear it, that they're finding new ways to treat cancer. All we keep hearing about is treatment and all this money that has gone into cancer research. And you mean to tell me here it is 2025 and they can't find a cure for cancer? Think about that for a second. It's a similar situation where I absolutely refuse to believe that they can't find the cure. I believe they can find it. Not only can they find it, but they know it, but they don't want to go that far because they benefit from this corrupt system. Let me give you an example. The doctors, the scientists, all of the, especially the doctors, big pharma, they benefit not finding a cure for cancer. As long as they can keep giving you treatment, they get a profit. Think about that. When it comes to these big banks, when it comes to the CFPB, same thing with Elizabeth Warren here. Yeah, they want to treat the symptom, but they don't want to fully fix the problem because they benefit from it. Why would you fix the problem about Wells Fargo or Goldman Sachs fully taking advantage of people? Why would you fix the entire problem if you're getting donations from Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo? And if you're not getting those donations, other people in your party are. So why would you fix it? So what they do, and I've said it before, they're called crumbs. They put a Band-Aid on it. They give you a little bit of crumbs to make it look like they're doing something, but they never actually cure the disease. And that's because it's all corrupt. They are corrupt. You have to start calling these parties, these politicians, corrupt, because that's what they are. Stop saying they don't know better. Stop saying they're naive. Stop saying they can't do something. Donald Trump just walked in to the White House and just signed over hundreds of executive orders. He just showed you what they can do. So keep that in mind. They're corrupt.
Well, we are here to fight back. We want our financial cops back on the beat. Yep. This is a fight, and I want you to watch who this fight is between. This is a fight between millions of hardworking people who just don't want to get cheated, and a handful of billionaires like Elon Musk who want the chance to cheat them.
Elon Musk may not be a billionaire contributing to the Democratic Party. Yes, he is a part of Donald Trump's administration, but we got to keep it real. If you really gonna call out billionaires, then you need to call out your party also being in cahoots with billionaires like George Soros, Bill Gates, just to name a few. Don't forget about Michael Bloomberg. You really don't have a leg to stand on with this issue. because you guys happily take billionaire money. Kamala Harris had billions and billions of dollars for her campaign. She happily took billionaire money. This is the problem that you run into with this particular situation. I can't stay on Elizabeth Warren too long because she be snaking me out. Because you ain't all the way legit either. Now, again, of course, I have issues with that being taken away because, like I said, one of the biggest concern is not just obviously the big banks, but also, again, the medical debt now appearing on your credit report. I know a number of people that would impact, regardless what political ideology that they have. That would be a big problem. And that's not helping working class people. So is it better off to be there than not be there? I would say yes. That being said, that's not the solution to the problem. Now, Donald Trump did respond to Elizabeth Warren, and I bet you can imagine what he said. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Mr. President, regarding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren, have said that by freezing it, it's giving big banks and giant corporations the green light to sue families.
Pocahontas, the faker. That was set up to destroy people. She used that as her little personal agency to go around and destroy people. And she's a fake. Just like she said she was an Indian, and she wasn't an Indian. You have more Indian blood in you than she has. She went to college based on the fact that she was an Indian. She got jobs based on the fact that she was an Indian. She's a fake. That was set up to destroy some very good people, and it worked. I mean, it worked. A lot of great people. I'll tell you, before I ever heard the term, people would come up to me in the Midwest and areas that say, "Sir, I'm being destroyed by them." They use that to destroy people. She's a nasty woman. She's a really nasty woman, despite her phony beer commercial. We did the right thing. That was a very important thing to get rid of. And it was also a waste. I mean, number one, it was a bad group of people running it, but it was also a waste. If you looked at when she really ran it, wow, that was a vicious group of people. They really destroyed a lot of people.
And you can confirm it's your goal is to have it totally eliminated, the agency?
Say, yeah, because we're trying to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Okay, guys, so you heard what he said there. The goal is to totally eliminate it. Again, like I said, if you have medical debt, I'm trying to tell you how you could be impacted by this. Yes, this could impact your credit score. So I don't mean to be the one to tell people, if you got medical debt, try to take care of that pretty quickly, because obviously if you could have, you probably would have. But that is a big concern there. I thought it was interesting. He brought up the Pocahontas comment, of course, about Elizabeth Warren, because one of the things that I said back then, I didn't think that it was right that, like, here's how I looked at it. The way that she was able to benefit from that, whether it was jobs, whether it was collegiate education, I think she should have had to been able to pay that money back. That's my take on that. I mean, Elizabeth Warren was seriously out there saying, I'm Native American. I said, honey, stop. Honey, stop. But of course, Eric brings up a really good point here. Trump and Warren both say the other one is terrible. In reality, they're on the same team. Nothing gets better until the 99% demand a non-corrupt government that represents us, not the mega corporations and billionaires. We need a government that gives us real solutions. And of course, Eric is talking about 11 Demands. So go to 11demands.org. We've covered that before on the show as well, because we do need to have demands. And Eric came up with this list of 11 demands to fight back against corruption, which is a big part of the problem. Now, I told you they never get to the solution, right? Here's part of the solution. And more people need to talk about this. How do you stop some of these big banks from being predatory? We need public banks. This is something I've been advocating for quite some time. Friend of the show, Roger Meadows, as well, put me onto public banks. And believe it or not, there is a state that has a public bank. It's North Dakota. And that bank is called the Bank of North Dakota. They don't talk about it much. They're kind of skittish. I tried to get them to come on the show and they really, I think they're a little skittish because they don't really want everybody to know what they're doing out there in them streets. But something that people don't really understand is that when we go back to the '08 housing crisis, did you realize that the one state that was not greatly impacted was North Dakota? You know why? Because they had a public bank. And I want to show you a little bit about what that looks like. What is a public bank? A public bank is a financial institution owned and operated by the government or a public entity. Public banks differ from private banks, which are owned and operated by private individuals or entities. The Bank of North Dakota is the only public bank in the United States. So everybody see this? Oh, and another thing I'll tell you about North Dakota, and I'm not trying to tell you to move there, but I know two former high school classmates of mine, moved to North Dakota. One lived there for 2 years. One lived there just for a year. Why did they move there? To make money and then come back to North Carolina. What both of them told me is that North Dakota has more jobs than people. And they said they were able to go to North Dakota, live dirt cheap, and they made a lot of money, saved their money, and then moved back to North Carolina and bought homes. Again, North Dakota has a public bank. Now, here are some of the pros about public banks. I just want to pull this up here. What happened to the pro part? There was here we go. Here are the pros. Pros and cons. We're going to tell you both. Pros. Wide range of financial services. Affordable public project financing is community focused financing during economic crisis. So does that sound familiar? What did I tell you about the '08 housing crisis? This is why North Dakota wasn't hit the way that other states were. Here are some of the cons. May not offer federal insurance. Weak local economy could threaten success. North Dakota doesn't have that problem. Risk of mismanagement of funds and lack of competition. But the big thing that I want to point out about these public banks is that this is a way that you can weaken the big banks, because ultimately, if you have a public bank and more people start to see what it's about and the benefits of it, then people start to move away from the big banks. I don't know. You can call it competition, whatever you want to call it. But the reality is, if you are offered something better that offers more benefits towards you and is not going to be predatory towards you, you're probably more likely to pivot towards that option. The Bank of North Dakota shouldn't be the only public bank in the country. We should be advocating for public banks in all of these states. If you live in a ballot initiative state, we should be organizing to run a ballot measure to build public banks. And then we can break away from Wells Fargo, break away from these big banks and do something different. And I know some people may be skeptical or hesitant, but the reality is I'm telling you about this. Elizabeth Warren doesn't mention this. Why not? Professor Richard Wolff talks about public banks. Why aren't any of these politicians that are in Congress, when they talk about these big banks, and how come they don't talk about public banking? Why are they so quiet? Shh, because they get their money. Because these banks donate to their party. So the real story is that the problem is the big banks. And regardless if you have the the CFPB may help in some ways, like I said, with the medical debt and the credit report, but it's not the ultimate solution. And I think we need to move away from Band-Aids and we need to start healing these wounds. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.